now we stay with religion for our next film. We come to a picture that's easy to criticize, but it's going to be a little tough to show you exactly why we don't like it. The film is in search of historic Jesus, one of those pseudo-documentary films made by the folks who have given us such dumb films as Beyond and Back, The Lincoln Conspiracy, and In Search of Noah's Ark. Those are great, weren't they?
Really terrific.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, as critics, Roger and I really detest the film that this company makes. It's Sun Classic Pictures out of Salt Lake City, and Sun Classic Pictures doesn't like us or many other critics. They wouldn't let us use a scene or let us take an excerpt from their new movie, In Search of Historic Jesus. It's a film that suggests in its hyped-up TV ads that it's going to prove that Jesus was the Son of God. Obviously something a lot of people are really interested in, to say the least. But the film proves no such thing. All it does is ask a lot of questions. Is this true? Is this not true? Or could this be true? You're looking at scenes television station WBBM-TV took of crowds going to see this movie at a downtown theater in Chicago. The makers of this type of movie typically rent the theater and jack up the admission price a half a buck, and yet the crowds keep coming. And what do people get? A cheap magic show. There's a sequence where Jesus walks on water. Look closely, you can see the ledge in the water the actor is walking on. Elsewhere, the film speculates on what Jesus did between the ages of 12 and 30. Here, the actor playing Jesus supposedly visits India and Persia in a sequence shot in Utah. This is an offensive retelling of a great story. If this film had been done right, it could have been beautiful, moving, and needless to say, very important. Instead, this is a cheaply made film that lifts battle footage from other biblical epics and calls it its own. In Search of Historic Jesus is a complete ripoff. Do you agree?
It is a complete ripoff. I do agree, and here's how they do it in their newspaper ads. What's despicable is the way the film company tries to pressure you to rush right out and see this movie with advertising campaigns that work like this. The first ad tells you the movie starts tomorrow for 1 week only. They run this ad on the day before it opens. Well, 1 week later, they run an ad proclaiming that this is the last day, your last chance to see this movie. But hold on, that's baloney, because in the very next day's paper, we see this ad. Look at this. Held over for one final week. Terrific. What do you know? It wasn't the last day. A little bit of a con game going on here, because the purchase order for this held over ad was placed at the very same time as the last day ad. In other words, when they said it was the last day for the film, they knew it wasn't the last day. There must be something about that in the Bible, Gene. The TV commercials do the same thing. The first week, they tell you it's for 1 week only. The second week, they tell you it's been held over, and they send out TV commercials for both weeks at the same time. Now, obviously, the newspapers and TV stations who accept this advertising are willing accomplices in these phony ad campaigns. They're at fault, too. But the fact remains that the public is being cynically pressured into seeing these movies by advertising gimmicks.
Designed by the film company.
Exactly.
You know what is even worse than the trickery with the ads? I think what's horrible is that these films perpetrate an old-fashioned notion of religion, and especially to little kids. Instead of stressing the human values that a religion has, this film gives us characters, a guy playing Jesus, and his hands glow. 3 wise men, and they're all lit up with neon.
Yeah.
What does this have to do with religion?
It's like everybody in this movie walks around with their fingers stuck in an electric light socket. You know, they're always glowing. Let me tell you one other thing that I liked. They talk about those missing years when Jesus was between the ages of 12 and 30. Well, that gives them 18 years when anything could have happened, and in this movie, anything does. They bring down a Bible from the shelf, for example. They say, well, this is a testament that was written in 1912. That's great. And then they show it to you, and then they put it back on the shelf. They never open it. And then we cut to a map. And they have little dotted lines going down the map. And they say, well, Jesus left Jerusalem, and maybe he went to Persia, and maybe he went to India. And then the dotted line goes over to India. But on the other hand, maybe he went over to England. Well, he had 18 years. He could have walked anywhere, right? And sure enough, in England, they show you a church. And they say, well, this church could have been built about the time that Christ was there. Well, I know enough about architecture to tell you that church is a Norman church. It wasn't built for hundreds of years after Christ was there, if he was there. But this movie doesn't care. You're just sitting there in the theater, and they say, what if he went to England? What if he went to Persia? You're totally confused, and they don't really care. Once they've got your money, they'll tell you anything.
And the worst thing about this kind of picture is that people get roped into this. I don't know when you saw it. The crowd, it was a big crowd when I saw it. People that when they get beaten like this, they don't want to go back to movies. Any kind of movie.
I think people get the point. We don't like In Search of Historic Jesus. And 2 more loud no votes for In Search of Historic Jesus, which had a phony ad campaign and turned out to be a complete ripoff once you got into the theater.